So the reason we're meeting this morning is to discuss a very small pilot scheme. So when I presented my initial ideas, I had to give something of a potential overview of what this plan might look like, how it might work. I mean, it's obvious from feedback that there are parts of my suggestions that won't work for various reasons, which was exactly the reason for sharing them, so that people can input both challenges and great ideas I hadn't thought about, so that everyone could have input. Because as I keep saying, this isn't Carrie's plan. This is, if we ever do anything with this, it's going to be the whole village plan. And the more public participation we have, the more buy-in we get, and the more harmony we have, both in the village and about the actual plan itself. So the aims of the smaller pilot scheme are, first of all, no harm done to our baboons, very low cost, very little effort, and potential fun. We have to look at challenges and potential unintended consequences and take those into consideration. We have to make this as unobtrusive to the village as possible, and it has to have an observable outcome, something we can actually see is getting results. So the hypothesis that this small pilot program is about is that baboons can learn that bags of a particular color never yield a food reward, so that over time they will learn to ignore bags of that color. So how will we know if it's working? If we're able to observe baboons across multiple locations, initially checking those bags as we know they'll do, then we see them checking them less frequently until hopefully they ignore them completely. Then we'll know that baboons have learned that a particular color bag isn't associated with food. Once we know that, we can then decide, okay, can we teach them that that same color ribbon isn't associated with food, so that people could maybe tie it on their arm and walk from the store? Or the possibilities are endless if we can teach them that. Of course, there's a long road to travel between here and there. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be quick. But think about the example of Ali's garbage can. So initially, baboons knew that if they went to a garbage can, they turned it over, they could access her garbage. Then they put mesh netting at the bottom and they put a heavy stone in it. And baboons would continue to try to flip it over. But once they realized they couldn't, that behavior reduced, and eventually they no longer even try, because they've now learned that they can't turn that garbage bin over. In the same way that when we had a baboon, the big guy, come into our house and have a nice food reward, I mean, he came back every single day for at least 10 days and checked all the doors. But then he started coming back less frequently. And over time, he soon learned that our house wasn't a house that was easily accessible. And so he started not even coming to our house. Or if he came and the troop came, they would forage on the lawn and forage in the fynbos, which is exactly how I think we'd all love to enjoy our baboons. So we're going to be using well-documented animal behavior shaping techniques, and we're going to start with the idea of shaping and pairing. So let's first understand how that learning happens so that we can then work on reversing that. So learning happens gradually in steps, and it becomes generalized. So for example, initially only homes are accessed and cars are ignored. Over time, baboons see humans open car doors, then they see packages inside, and they mimic them by trying door handles. They discover that there's often a food or a reward in packages in cars. They try more door handles. Then they discover food in cars in unexpected places. So obviously cars become accessed more often. They try more car doors. They discover that locked handles can be broken. They broke more door handles. And so that's how they learn. In small, gradual steps, their behavior becomes shaped. So basically, favorable results increase behavior, and that behavior becomes reinforced and conditioned. And you can see, I think, how our baboon troop in Roy Else has done exactly that. And troop adoption is speedy through what is known as cultural learning through observation and teaching. So for example, when they do animal experiments and they put one animal in a cage with a perspex side, and they put another animal in a cage alongside it, and they teach this animal behavior. This animal learns it through just observation. And I'm pretty sure that our baboons learn through observing us. They learn through observing each other, and the babies learn from, I mean, that's how they learn, by observing and being taught by their parents. So if reinforcement is what makes behavior stronger, then removing it permanently will eventually reduce the behavior. That's known as extinction. And extinction is best used in conjunction with reinforcement of another behavior, ideally one that serves the same function as the unwanted reward. Now, that comes with a little bit of a challenge for us, because obviously we don't want to start feeding baboons in another place or another color bag. I mean, that just could make the problem worse. But that was why if you remember my very first presentation, I mentioned that maybe we could take another color like a cloth and put it around fynbos rich areas where they soon learn to associate that color with a food reward that is found naturally in the environment. However, we'll have to talk about that. The other thing, a word of warning, is that before behavior starts to decline due to non-reinforcement, predictably it'll flare up in what's known as an extinction burst. In other words, the behavior gets worse before it gets better. The behavior becomes more frequent before it starts to reduce. So people who aren't aware of what we're doing and who aren't aware of this may watch the initial beginning of this pilot program and go, well, if anything, it's made the behavior worse. So just be aware of that. Extinction isn't fast, and spontaneous recovery can occur. So those are all things that we need to take into consideration, and we're going to talk about all of them. But our focus is going to be on changing how baboons perceive where they're likely to get rewards in the royal environment using extinction techniques. As I said, it's going to take time, and I frankly don't know how long. I don't even know if it'll work. So we're going into this with our eyes open and seeing, can it work? But the bottom line is that if this small pilot scheme doesn't work, then it's pointless continuing with any of the other ideas. But at least it wouldn't have hurt a single baboon. It wouldn't have cost a fortune or required a huge effort. And I think those are three important things. And plus, it could mean that we have a whole lot of fun. And fun is always a unifying factor. And for me, the whole reason I started this is because I want to see unity in our village. I want to see more harmony, something that our village can join around and feel in harmony about. So the reason that I thought about this plan in the very beginning was because as a psychology student, we learned about animal shaping behavior. And the guy who's best known for this is Then he decided to do a small tweak. He rewarded the pigeons randomly, both on the quantity of food rewarded and the frequency at which these are rewarded. So instead of the one peck and immediate food, this time he would say, okay, 2 pecks before you get your pellet, or 4 pecks before you get your pellet. And to his surprise, he noticed something that completely shocked him. Unlike when pigeons received that reward at a regular interval, when they had variable rewards, they went totally berserk. They continuously pecked at the button compulsively. And that's part of what explains that extinction burst, is that if baboons are used to accessing bags and finding a reward in them, when they start finding that there is no reward in a bag, they are likely to open more and more bags and to do it more often. So just be aware of that. Okay, so here my suggested actions are that initially we put out the same bag in the same place day by day, so that they hopefully have checked it out so many times that eventually they no longer bother. And then my suggestion is that once we notice this on 3 consecutive visits, and I'm putting 3 in a question mark because I don't know if that's sufficient time, maybe it has to be 5 days, I don't know. Then we add a second bag of the same color alongside it, and sometimes a third or a fourth. And in each case, once bags have been ignored on, let's say, 3 consecutive visits, then we change things up again. So what we're doing is mastering one small step and then tweaking it, mastering that step and tweaking it. So that gradual shaping, that gradual learning, one thing at a time. Then let's say we take those same bags and in different groupings from 1 to however many, we alternate where we place them. So instead of placing them in the same place, we now move them to a different place in our yard. Sometimes back in the original position, and at other times in a different position. And we do that until they no longer check them out in whichever space and place we put them for, let's say, 3 consecutive visits. Then we switch it up again. We start using different shades and sizes, and maybe even different materials of that same particular color bag, and putting them in more random places, so that over time they learn, no matter what size bag or shade of bag that color, no matter how many times they look inside, there is no reward. So they may as well ignore any bags of that particular color. So as you can see, this isn't going to be a day-long thing. I think that this is going to stretch over months as we play this game and see, how do our baboons react? I mean, do they still continue to check them even if there's no food reward in them? But if we can visibly see that baboons start ignoring these bags, we could also then stop doing this for, let's say, 2 weeks, and then reintroduce it to see how long it takes for them to start ignoring those bags again. And the reason for this suggestion is that in some of Skinner's experiments, he would extinct the behavior, then stop doing it for a while, and see it how it gradually started to creep back, and then he would introduce it, and he would strengthen the learning by introducing it a second time after some of that learning had been unlearned. If we can see that baboons lose interest pretty fast, then we can discuss how we could use this idea in other areas and other applications. But for now, I just want to see, can baboons learn that a certain color bag isn't associated with food? And from there we could say, okay, let's say that we find that that is true. We can teach them. Could the next step be something like starting to put ribbons on someone's hand when they walk from the shop, or ribbon on a backpack of that same color? I don't know. I'm just saying for now, we're just going to do that one small thing that I think is measurable. So I looked at common South African grocery bags. As you can see, ShopRite is bright and yellow. So along with what Stephen said, that probably wouldn't be the best color. Greens and sort of teal blues even are a little bit dodgy. And so one of the things that I thought about was, initially I thought, yellow is a very good color because ticker, warning, caution tape, you also get that in yellow. And one of the thoughts that I had, especially on construction sites, was how we could eventually, if the first little test worked, generalize it so that yellow ticker tape was something that we could use to start teaching baboons that there are certain areas that they couldn't pass. Like, maybe we could teach them a shop door if it's got ticker tape initially around it, but initially near it, or small parts of it. So whatever color we decide to use, it needs to be readily visible, available, and preferably that we get warning tape in that particular color as well. So then I thought a lot about what Christopher said on our last call about, is there any empirical evidence that a particular color works best? And I hadn't found anything. And this morning I did a slightly different Google search and found this that I thought was really interesting. These are monkeys, not baboons, but monkeys have one disadvantage over baboons in that they are dichromatic. In other words, they only see two colors, whereas we are trichromatic. We see, like baboons are, all colors the same way that baboons see color the same way that we do. But he found that monkeys were actually leery of the color red. Now, just going back to this slide, green is obviously grass, white and pink are repens. You do get lots of red berries, but I don't know if you get a big solid mass of red. So that is worth thinking about. Dark purple, black, white, olives, orange, so many fruits. And this person suggested blue. Blue has its advantages, I think, in that it stands out and it isn't a color found in nature. But I don't know that you get blue caution tape. And whatever color we start with is really important, because if any parts of this work and we decide to extend it and generalize it to other situations, I think it's important that we get a warning tape in it because of some of the ideas around using that warning tape. So Gerald Kralik, neuroscientist and assistant professor in the Department of Psychological and Brain Studies at Dartmouth University, studied male rhesus macaques, I don't know, a species of monkey sensitive to color in Cayo Santiago, Puerto Rico last year, and discovered that animals gave pause when presented with enticements from someone wearing red. So what they did was they would go in with slices of apple on trays, and they would wear different colors, the actual research or the people presenting it. So he says the monkeys paid no attention to the gender of the experimenters. We know that baboons do seem to pay attention to that, or to what the experimenters were, whether they were wearing green or blue. In that case, the monkey typically went directly to the slice he wanted. So these were apple slices put on trays, ran off and ate it. However, the monkey stayed away from the tray delivered by experimenters wearing red, and instead took the apple from the other tray. Social relationships matter to primates. Blood is always red, and angry primates show their colors, says Kralik. When interacting with our fellow humans, simple inherited signals of dominance still influence our hearts and minds. And so psychologically, red might be a good color to use. There are some challenges with red, but we'll talk about that as well. So we just want to look at challenges and possible unintended consequences. Okay. I'm going to assume for right now that unless there's some reason that red turns out to be not a good color to use, that we're going to work with red just based on that small bit of research. How about the idea of the availability of red bags? Because, because they aren't readily available, that could be something of a challenge. Are there any creative ideas about how to solve that problem?
Sorry,
one of the things that I thought of is maybe there's a villager that if we bought some red material, would make some red bags for us for this experiment, so that we can just even get an idea if that would work. Moran, do you want to go ahead? Thank you. You can unmute
Hi, it's
yourself.
Moran and Robert. How are you? We joined a bit late, and sorry for coming late today. Okay, we've been chatting to some rangers that we know, rangers who've got years and years and years of experience with baboons in the bushes, and not just one, multiple rangers, about the idea that we're proposing here. They're saying their concern is baboons are not normal animals. They're lower order primates. They have a brain more like us than like any other animal we're dealing, like a mongoose and whatever. Smell food, go for food. Even if you've had a bad connotation with a color, if you smell the food, you will go for the food. So they were asking some questions about royals, and they say, where are your bins? Are they outside? And we said, yes, but they're locked up. They said, not good enough. There's food in those bins. The baboons can smell the food. The smell of the food is drawing the baboons to the town. Even if they can't get to it, the very fact that there is a smell of food, they're coming to it. Next question they asked us is, how big is the troop? Okay, and we said it's over 20, and they said it should not be more than 10. If it's over 20, the baboons have too much food. In a natural troop order, there's too much food. They're breeding too prolifically because food is too readily available. Now, they said that the answers they were giving us are not the answers anyone wants to hear. They can guarantee these are not the questions they want. They said, the only way to restore order in royals is not, if we don't want to remove the baboons, is to reassert dominance over the baboons in royals. Megan was saying the second a baboon touches a human, the second a baboon comes up to a human and puts a paw on you or a hand, it no longer fears you. It no longer sees you as a threat, and it no longer sees you as a challenge. A wild baboon would never touch you. It would never dare come close to you. It would never mug a human. So she's saying that in the bush, the solutions are very extreme. We don't want those solutions here.
Yeah.
What she's saying for royals is, if everyone is carrying something like a cattle prod, and she says it's not a nice solution. A lot of people are going to be unhappy. But if a baboon associates coming too close to a human or mugging a human with a shock from a cattle prod, the whole troop is not going to want to do it. In fact, they're going to want to spend as little time around us as possible. So they may raid bins, they may come into the houses, but they're certainly not going to try mug humans, because they know what that means. They're going to get shocked, and it's a very unpleasant experience. She said, we can try the bags, but her concern is that the baboons will still smell through what we're trying to do.
Yeah. You know, Robert, that's a very valid concern, and one that Steph brought up as well previously, you know, the idea that smell is very powerful for baboons. Yep. Somebody else suggested that another predator, natural predator of baboons, is leopards, lions, etc. Yep. And they were wondering if eventually we couldn't pair the color of the bags with some sort of a smell. I don't know if you get a repellent smell, like, you know, I know that in some of the parks here, they use a natural bear smelling type of smell to mask food, trash cans in the wild. So, you know, I don't know that, but I mean, those are certainly incredibly valid points. And it is, I mean, I did not know that the average size of a natural baboon troop was 10, and that, you know, we're way over that. And that, as you know, as you say, it's possibly because there's so much availability of food in the village.
But she said something else, and it's something I don't think we've considered. She said, if you look at nature, any animal where there are violent fights for leadership has a hierarchy and a dominance structure. Baboons fight each other for leadership. She says they take power through violence in their own packs. She says you can't treat them differently. They understand power through the most dominant and the most powerful in the pack. Yeah. She said it's not something she wants to be telling us, because she knows we're all trying to find a very nice, peaceful way to do this. But she says rangers have tried over and over and over every trick in the book. Their solution, unfortunately, is they shoot the baboons. We don't want to do that. We don't ever want to get there. We don't want to chase them out of town. We don't ever want them to be harmed. But she says, step one, no socialization with baboons under any circumstance. She says, you do not walk with them, you do not touch them, you do not pick them up, you do not talk to them, and you do not name them. She says, you are not friendly to them. She says, because they need to understand that in the Royals pack scenario, they take second place to humans. And it's not something that a lot of people are going to want, and I can understand why. But they don't.
So, Robert, what about the people who say, but this is an ecosystem, you know, this is a biosphere, and actually baboons should be put before humans?
Baboons in nature are not the dominant species. Leopards prey on them. They're a foraging species that walks around. Now, they have in a biosphere, they wouldn't have access to our food. They wouldn't have access to ready food like they do. So that's already an unnatural circumstance. So the whole argument with the baboons have a right to be here. Definitely, absolutely 100%. But we're a transition zone. We have urban with residential rights, and we have humans living on those urban, giving them unnatural access to food. So I think that argument kind of has to be reevaluated, because they have to learn to live with us in an unnatural environment, short of us all packing up and leaving.
Yeah, it's a very challenging situation, you know. And I was also, you know, saying that because I've been going to Royals for so many years, I mean, my family's been going to Royals for 35 years. You know, I also remember when baboons didn't seem to be quite as in your face as they are now. And, you know, I know that people say, well, there's anecdotal evidence that that's not true, but you know, there are lots of old timers that seem to also think the baboon's behavior has become more aggressive over time.
So Megan was saying that what she's fearing that what we are assuming when we gently shoo them out is mutual respect, is actually a brazen approach to us that, yeah, they don't want to fight, you know, they'll leave. Because the first thing is they should never have been there the first time, in the first case. And she says, by what we're doing, by even just by leaving our rubbish in our slatted bins outside, we're making the problem worse, because we're attracting them to the smell of food.
Yeah,
the first step would be,
I mean, I can see that.
All bins inside, no food source available for them. No baboons can roam freely around Royals as much as they like, but no baboon touches a human.
So what you're saying is that game rangers say, we would have to do something to our bins so that you could actually leave garbage in your bins so that they got some sort of a shock if they even touched bins. And you're saying that they
Not
would...
even that. No smell. No smell of food outside, because we've tempted them. We've dangled this carrot and said, look, here's a box full of food. Yeah, they can't get to it, but everywhere in Royals, between garbage days, are boxes full of food. And maybe someone's been stupid and left their box full of food not properly locked. So we'll go around the whole town and see whose box may be a little bit open. But if all food is inside, there's no boxes of food lying around Royals, so there's no point in walking around Royals, because the chances are you're not going to find anything.
Well, how do you do that practically, though? Because I'm just thinking about that, and we don't know for sure if it was a baboon, but, you know, if you've got those garage doors that it looked like it was accessed by a baboon when people went away for 4 weeks, where do you actually even keep your garbage where they wouldn't smell it? And how do you then get it from your house to the garbage truck?
That's the problem, because we've created a totally unnatural environment, and an environment that makes it really, really difficult to live in harmony with them, because we're driving them mad.
Yeah. You know, Robert, I hear everything you say. And there is no easy solution to this problem. And yes, that would extinct their behavior way quicker than anything. But it's certainly beyond the scope of what I'm envisaging with this game, purely because I am trying to find something in between that keeps all groups happy. And I don't know if there is a way to even do that, but it seems to me that between these two groups, one group that say humans should live in prison so that baboons can roam free, and baboons, the other group says, well, no, you know, baboons should be relocated so that humans can live free in Royals. There's an awkward tension and challenge between those two.
So I'll tell you where the conflicts come in. Humans living in prison, burglar bars, baboon proofing. You know, I think some people could be pushed to being careful to not let them into their houses baboon proof. But when you can't even go out into the street, I think that's where people start to draw the line. And Megan was saying, if this was a human, they would be in jail. If this was a human treating another human the same way, we would lock them up and put them in prison.
No, there's absolutely truth if you look at it that way. And, you know, I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but we've spent 66,000 Rand trying to baboon proof our home, and we're super vigilant. It can be very expensive to even try and baboon proof a small area, never mind something that is a big area. But I agree with you. My biggest concern is actually public spaces, because, Stephanie was telling us last week about Mary, who got pushed over by a baboon trying to grab a bag from her. So she could have broken a hip. And there are some terrible stories about things that have happened, not with baboons, but with monkeys on the internet, that really worry me.
I think Albie's right. I think actually we might have a better chance with smell, with pheromones.
Mm-hmm.
Because that they're going to be wondering where the predator is all the time if there's a smell around. And what the game rangers are worried about is if they're touching humans and pushing humans over. They said that it's a nice fairy tale that baboons aren't dangerous. She said someone is going to be savagely bitten. And she said it has happened. If anyone's telling us it hasn't happened, it's happened all over the bushveld. There are cases all over the place, including people who have almost died from baboon attacks.
Yeah.
It will get to a stage where a baboon wants something, a non-dominant human will say no. If someone who's not big enough, or someone that the baboon doesn't feel is threatening enough, and the baboon will attack. Because it's not that it's a predator and it's trying to kill you, but you have what it wants.
God forbid it's a child.
And it will take what it wants because it's not scared of you anymore. And she says, and I think what struck home, she said, it's not a matter of if. She says, it's a matter of when. And they've come out from the bush. They've lived in the bush their whole life. And they've come to Cape Town recently. And they're looking around. They're saying, look, they're actually in Constantia. And they're saying to everyone, there is a disaster in the making. The whole of the Cape Peninsula, there's a disaster waiting to happen because we don't understand. We're trying to put human emotions onto a lower order primate. We're trying to put our emotions and our higher order reasoning. And she said, you want to love them. You want to pick up those babies. You want to give them a name. You want to foster them. She says, but when you've lived in nature, which is cruel, in the bush, you realize that that's the last thing you can do with them. They're a wild animal. They're a lower order primate. They don't have the ability to bargain and reason like we do. And we can never forget that. She says, if we continue, her feel is, if we continue the way we're going, we will actually sign their death warrant, which we don't want. We want them living amongst us. We want to find a way that we can look out of the window and they're eating in the trees around us and the babies are running and playing.
Look, I think that in this group, though, sorry, I'm interrupting, it's Moran here. I think in this group, though, we're trying to find a beginning of something to get together and try and get something, progress in some sort of direction that gets the village working together towards finding a solution.
Yeah.
So I think that we are here to try and use this whole bag and color. And I think maybe smell needs to be part of the equation, because I think we all agree that smell is a very important thing. So let's see how we start from something small, and maybe we can build on something that becomes bigger and a bigger drive, right?
Definitely. I'm still totally pro trying to find a solution to this.
Okay. I just want to go to some of the things in chat. Peter, you wanted to add something? Or someone said I must ask you to speak, so I just want to, and I know you've also had, from our last conversation, you've also had some interaction with game wardens.
Yeah, no, I want, I was wondering, did you get hold of Peter at Drummond?
Yes, Peter said that I can chat to him, and I'll do it again in an open forum next Wednesday at 5, Wednesday the 14th. So we will have a chat with him as well, because obviously this whole thing is around food. That's the only reason the baboons are even coming to the village as often as they do, is because there is food reward. And so, and the biggest concern, I agree with everyone, is that it's our public spaces that are the biggest concern. We can take steps in our houses. We can learn how to, get really good at stopping them from accessing our homes, but it's the public spaces.
Look, if I can just perhaps say this. I think we must look beyond either or. It's not either this solution or that solution. We have to have a multi-pronged approach to this, and decide amongst ourselves what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. I think whatever we can try, we should try, and everybody should sort of join a total strategy of what we agree is we want the baboons around, but we want them to act like baboons, and we do not want them habituated. And there are many ways to achieve that. And I can also say what Robert is saying, the discussion I had with the game rangers and the physical experience I had with them in the Kruger is precisely exactly word for word what he is saying. I cannot support him more.
Okay, thank you. Claire, you say we want to argue for non-anthropomorphism when it suits us, but compare them to human robbers at other times, question mark. Do you want to just chat about that a little? And please remember, we're listening to each other with kind and respectful ears. This is an open-hearted discussion where we can afford to have different views, where all views are encouraged, because none of us have the answers. So, you know, we want voices from all sides of the spectrum. So, Claire, if you don't mind sharing more of your views, that would be really valuable. Is Claire still on? Okay. It doesn't look like she's on at the moment. So there was also, Albie said, I know lion feces do cause fear. Those are baboons' natural predators. Lions and leopards are unfortunately shot out way back. The natural ecological systems were altered. So Rob, what's they know, not color, it's a smell. Yeah, but the thing is, where do we access the smell from, you know, and how do you spread it sufficiently over all food sources, you know, that it actually will be paired with something? Because it is, you know, I mean, if you look at animal studies and how they change behavior, it is using extinction and it is using aversive methods sometimes. But I know that, you know, even the idea of a snake sandwich in Royals was something that was not met with approval. Now, I understand it from a point of view that certainly we'd have to be extremely careful if we ever did it, that someone wasn't hurt. I mean, imagine a child getting, you know, bit by a snake, or an adult. You know, it would be a disaster. But, you know, people are also very sensitive even about the lives of snakes and how we treat snakes. And I want to respect all wildlife and all human life, you know, so there are things to take into account. And I have no idea what the best method is. And my simple proposal is just so small. And I don't know with all this discussion, if it's worthwhile continuing with just the simple idea of pairing a color with trying to see if baboons will ignore that. And, you know, with what I'm hearing now, maybe it isn't worth it. I don't know. So what does everyone else say? Because honestly, this, you know, this is, as I was trying to say, you know, it feels like I've somehow been labeled as this person who wants to take over baboon management in Royals. I don't. I just have a simple idea. It's like, let's say we're a group of bakers, you know, and I'm saying to you, hey, I've got this recipe. And, you know, it may work. Do you want to give it a try? And let's get together and discuss what might work and what might not work about it. I'm not trying to take over baking for the whole village. Okay, Albie, do you want to add something to the conversation?
Yes, I think, Corey, thank you so much. I think what I like about this is that everyone can say what it is, what they feel, maybe sensible, not. Anyone can decide, but at least if you have a collective mind, it's not a simple solution. I think it has multiple angles. And I think, let's say Rob says smell is a thing, you say color, I say talk, someone say just shoot him or just taz him or just, I don't know, no one knows. I think the forum must be, you share your idea, and instead of saying, what about the color? Where are we going to get red bags, yellow bags? how I could smell there. To get lion feces, it's not difficult for me because
Oh,
I've got connections. So I can get that because I've got connections with some lion farms. It is not to say that's the answer, but so instead of seeing the obstacle, see the multiple solutions maybe that there might be. We might have to go through a period of trying yellow bags, red bags, feces, or and maybe non-intrusive showing of, I don't know, snakes, or I know people don't like that or whatever, but I think let's try and do the soft thing like taste, smell, color, and maybe the more, when I have a kid, if he doesn't want to listen, I will talk to him, I'll do the psychological thing, and sometimes I have to hit his bum. Then he listen. So I'm not saying harass them, chase them away. I think most of us on this group feels like they're so cute sometimes, and when they're wet and they're small, you can just hug them and say, stay in this. You just want to smack them or just shoot them. I don't think it's abnormal to feel like that because I don't want to live in a cage. I want to sit outside of my stupid and at least enjoy sunset and buy something. So what I do say is let's just keep this going and take all the ideas, but maybe we must get more formalized. So if I have an idea, let's have an Excel spreadsheet or a column, put the ideas in there and say, okay, what is good, what is bad, and what is executable, not entailing excessive cost. If the idea is not practical, implementable, it's not even worthwhile pursuing. So I think we must do something like start to record the stuff in a spreadsheet or some other document. And even if you're only 7 or 8 on this group, it's okay.
Mm.
Let's just start to say, okay, well, this is all the wonderful, someone to just shoot them out because their natural predators are really shot out way before we got here.
Yeah.
You go back to the stories. So the natural ecosystem anyhow has been altered. So what we have here is not necessarily what anyone else calls natural. They were first here and we came second. And as Bob said, are they first order or whatever? I think both us and they want to have a living and they can roam wherever. So for us to get a solution, I think it would be good if we start to record what everyone's opinion is. And then we work from a structured forum. So I don't know where we are, but let's say it's a 4th talk. This is what's recorded. And everyone just give their free opinion. Whether it's viable or not, that remains to be seen. So we say, okay, the idea is this one says color, yellow or red. Bob says smell is immensely important. Put your rubbish away. No one must smell it. I say maybe Anna Breitenbach's got something. Let's talk to them. Someone said, oh, just test them. Just throw all those ideas in one column. Then say pros and cons and how executable it is and what are the implications. So I think if we start to record what we say, that would be a good scientific way to start off. I've talked so much. So that's my
Thank you,
my thing
Albie.
for time.
Yeah, I think it's really important to do idea sharing because, we're so much stronger when we all link our ideas together and all add our ideas in than if we, work singly on our own. So I definitely agree with that. I'm not the person though to keep this document. So I don't know if there's someone who does a Google Drive thing that would be prepared to set up something like Albie's speaking where we could go and add stuff in. I know that Claire did set up a document, but it really wasn't about the baboon game. you know, it was much more about baboon management. And I think there were some really valuable ideas in there, but just a document where we can have ideas and pros and cons might be really valuable. So I don't know if there's anyone who is able and wants to set that up, that would be a great idea. Steph, you had your hand up.
I've just put it down very fast because I'm not the person to do the document either, just saying.
Okay. Well, it's good to know we all have different skills. It's not mine.
So, no, I just wanted really thanks everybody for input. It's very interesting. I apologize for coming in late. Elby, I think you have a good point about just collating the information without too much, and I feel quite strongly without too much wada, but just facts, points. This is what the ideas that have come up, and we can, then one can really evaluate it. But just to go back to what Robert was saying, we lived in the Kruger for 10 years, many years ago, and I'm not the zoologist, Ian is, but I think, and he agrees, that smell is probably your highest possibility of changing something. My immediate concern would be, will they get used to the smell and work out that, no, this is just a bit of poop and nothing worse than that? You know, I think the basics, maybe if we can just stick to the basics. A, we want them in our village. We want that wonderful privilege of having them around. B, we don't want them in our houses. We don't want them going near people, near children or older people. Don't want them snatching bags. So yeah, listen, this is a biggie. So that's, yeah, not much more to say right now. Thank you.
Albie, you had your hand up?
Yes, so thanks so much for that. I just think it's going to be trial and error. There are so many experiments done, so many things. Gavin sent me a thing about baboon proofing your restaurant, and then it's not so much cost, and the baboons can watch you eating. So, and he says it's not a lot of cost involved, but maybe worthwhile trying. So I'm not shooting that off. Thinking, would I like to live in age? Okay, so what baboons watching me while I'm caging myself in, not for too much. I think there must be some or other way to get around it, and maybe not so soft and just looking at bags, something more stringent. Now, I'm just going back to my kids. My kids, I try to talk to them. So I've got 3 kids. So 2 daughters, 2 girls and a boy. So I could just give one look and say, I'm really disappointed. And they would go crying and trying to fix everything. My son went like, what are you talking about? And I had to smack his back. So I think not one approach is this is the answer. It's going to be maybe a multiple thing. And we would have to allow for multiple ideas, trial and error, but let's just give it a try. And you know what? Every single concern from anyone saying, I don't think this is going to work because of X, Y, and Z. You take X, Y, and Z, and you say, okay, that's a real question. How can we better this? So that's why I really think a documented trial, and I appreciate, Corey, that you don't want to do it. Admin is not my skill either. I don't know who else is there, but if no one is willing, I'm fine to do it.
Okay, is there anyone else
I'll
putting
ask
their
my
hand up? Just so
secretary.
that,
Please, someone else.
would love to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe there's a skill, and only 7 today, because I think Sundays in this weather, I actually also thought, am I going to join? Am I not? So I think maybe if you share your video now on the group, just maybe ask, is there anything with anyone with admin skills that would like to keep a document, a live document on opinions. And I love the shared space of no one condemns no one. If I feel like I can just gun him down for a minute, but I really don't want to do that, but I feel so frustrated with what's just happened. And then I see a little baby shying away from the rain. I want to just hug them. So I think every one of us are feeling the same way. It's a matter of love and hate and just how do we get along. But someone needs to keep track of what we're saying, because otherwise we're going to talk and talk ever and nothing's ever going to show up.
Okay, well, I will ask in the group when I post this, and I'll let you know. Moran says the baboons in our front garden almost every day. We're happy to spread the lion feces in our front garden and report on whether baboons still come to us as usual or whether this makes a difference. So here's what I'm going to suggest, because when it comes to doing anything that hurts the baboons, that's nothing that I've ever had in mind. And that's a bigger plan than what I've got. And I hear all the motivation behind it. So what I'm wondering is this: can we not just see if we can teach baboons that a certain color isn't associated with food? And also, if we can get lion feces, put them in a garden, one garden like Moran's in them, and see, what happens with the baboon visits. Do they steer away? Because the other difficulty is, let's say we train them that, yes, there are potentially lions in the village. How do we keep that going? Royals is quite a big village, and, so it's fine for one yard, but how do we generalize that? I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing out ideas there. But, I think there are two things that I value. One is the communication of ideas and a place where we can share ideas, because I do feel that there's almost a sense in the village that if you have any problem with the baboons whatsoever, you can't say it because then you're wrong. And so I think that that's also a problem. I think that if we can share our frustrations, like in the old days, I remember, like, a neighbor's house would have a hit, and it almost like a work party of people would gather around, and, we'd really clean up quite cheerfully and help each other out. And then we'd have a beer afterwards and talk about how naughty the baboons were. And I almost feel like we've lost some of that, which is really sad for me. So I don't know. I mean, would anyone still think that it's worth trying to pair a color just to see if we can do something with color and possibly smell? I mean, I don't want to force anyone to do something if everybody's thinking, well, this is a stupid idea and it's not going to work. Seriously, then we're wasting our time. And I don't mind opening a space for conversation for possible solutions. But my idea is just the simple pairing of color, stroke, smell, and I think they're all good ideas that have some potential to work and a huge possibility they may not work. So what does everyone feel? Can I just go around and let's just get a sort of sense of where we're at? Steph, what do you think?
So I would say, I think it's, in principle, let's try the color thing, but I'm just thinking practically. I mean, who of us has got time to sit inside the house, looking out the window, waiting for the baboons to come around, and when or if they come around, keeping an eye, are they looking in that yellow bag? What is their reaction? I just can't quite see it practically working out. I mean, I'm happy to put yellow bags all around my house, probably, but I'm not going to be able to monitor them. That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
maybe, and again, I like all these, just that we need to just think out the box. So as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, okay, maybe in the business center, there's cameras, so maybe one could put them in view of the cameras so that one could maybe monitor that. Then you have to pull in the persons who monitor the cameras. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, and those are all incredibly valid concerns. And funny enough, on a later slide that I have is, how do we do this? Because I agree with you, nobody's got time to sit in their house and Okay, 4 hours, 5 hours waiting. So, I was thinking that if we had some kind of alert system that the baboons were coming into the village, and that people didn't sit and watch, but they when they were like sort of observing in nature, if they saw baboons looking, and then after a few weeks they didn't see the baboons looking, it would give us an indication. I mean, it's not like we can sit there with a little chart and make hash marks of how many times they do it. So yeah, and cameras is definitely one of the things, is to try and put them where there is a camera. Okay, but yes, many challenges. Thanks, Steph. Moran, you've got your
yeah,
hand
I think it actually is a very good idea that you just raised about notifying people when the baboons are coming to the village. I think Leon or somebody used to do it a long time ago, like about a month or two ago. And I think that should be something that's encouraged in any event, so that we all know that they are around, and if we are having a braai, to be more wary and to watch out that they don't steal things. And then, yeah, we're happy to put a bag outside. We have cameras on our perimeter, so we can put it where the cameras are. And they only record when there's movement, so we can see what they do with the bags and whether they're interested. So we're very happy to give it a go and see what happens. I mean, there's nothing to lose.
Well, that's my thinking. There's nothing to lose because it's so low cost. It's not high effort. And if you've got a camera that you can, sort of look at that, I mean, that solves that particular problem. Yeah.
So I'm very happy to try and look for a red bag. And then what is the idea, that we put rocks in it?
We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I was thinking more of canned food. I mean, baboons don't go for canned food, do they? Because A, they can't smell it. B, it's got food labels on it, so it looks like it's food. And it's heavy, which means that the wind won't blow it away. And also, hopefully, they don't take the bag and distribute it everywhere, because that was one of my other fears, is that, between the wind and the baboons, that we'll end up having these red bags scattered everybody and everywhere, and everyone in the village is very unhappy because, it's not great for the environment. So those were my thoughts. Okay. But if you guys think it's worth giving a small pilot to, I'm going to just continue through, then I'll go through the rest of the slides and just show you some of the ideas that I had.
All right, perfect.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
I would say a baboon, if he's keen enough, he'll bite into a can.
Really?
Because I would say so. I mean, I'm not a baboon, but yeah. They are so strong. Or even just squish it and it could burst, or I don't know. But I'm just saying, I don't know if cans maybe.
And maybe the people who have contacts with game wardens could ask and see what sort of experiences they've had. Otherwise, we would just have to do totally non-food related something, whatever that is.
Cleaning materials.
What's that?
Cleaning materials.
Cleaning materials? Yep. Okay. Thanks, Steph. That's valuable. Peter?
Yeah. Well, bricks. it's about the color now, and not really the content, I think. But I think Moran, if Moran is prepared to do the camera thing, it could be very, very valuable. Cameras, you can analyze the footage afterwards. It doesn't have to be in real time. And you have a record of it. You can show it to different people that understand animal behavior far better than I do, anyway. And it could be valuable information. We should really try it. I'm quite prepared to put the bags or anything here at my house. I unfortunately don't have a camera, so I think the camera is pretty key. And there are cameras that are specifically designed for this. Yeah. Which I think there are lots of them around. Also, I have to say that I am pretty disappointed in the absence of people with strong views about this on this forum. there are people on both sides of the argument, or all 10 sides of the argument. What did Donald Trump say? There are good people on both sides. So I think we should put an effort to get the loud voices onto the forum, because it could.
Well, I would really encourage, honestly, I really want people from all sides, because, you know, if it just becomes voices that think baboons are a problem, and there are no voices that think the baboons are no problem whatsoever, I think we lose something incredibly valuable. I mean, I would actually like to interview Gavin, because, you know, Gavin has a certain relationship with the baboons. I'm sure we can learn from him. I know that, you know, some of the things that he's helped my tenants with and that he's helped me with have been really valuable for me. I'm not sure how they play out over the long term, but in the short term, they were certainly very, you know, they were very helpful.
One would like to, just the last thing, one would like to prevent whatever we are doing to get bad publicity on social media by people that were not part of the process. One would prefer to get buy-in in this way before we do something, to not create unnecessary, because if it starts, it snowballs. Once you have one negative comment on the social media, it snowballs and it becomes a fight between personalities and playing the man and not the ball, and then the whole thing is lost. Then people become
and I mean, whatever I do, the thing that worries me most is that I don't want to end up doing anything that creates more disharmony in our village.
Precisely.
Honestly, that would be the worst possible outcome of this for me. And if I think there's any danger of that, or if any of you think there's danger, I would rather stop it right now and say, let's just leave things.
I don't think so. I think there's only danger if we should aggressively pursue the people with strong feelings about the situation and ask them to come on and at least talk to us. And let us share ideas.
I'm going to rely on all of you that live in the village to, you know, encourage people of different views, because that's what we need. We need all voices, because that's the only way that we can open our hearts towards each other and create a space where everybody's got good ideas, you know, and so we need those ideas as well. That's the diversity of thinking that I think we need. Shini, can I ask you?
Yeah, good afternoon, Kerry. Yeah, it's Kishini's husband. Yeah. So look, I definitely advocate you know, the bags, the red bags, and perhaps rocks, or like Peter said, you know, the red bricks. But again, you know, we have to try something. You know, otherwise, you know, as much as we coming up with solutions, and of course, you know, some of us are disagreeing on certain things. But if we don't try, we won't know, right? And I definitely look. We fairly new in the area. It's like our third month, and we only stayed there 2 weeks. So we up in Gauteng, but most definitely we want to be part of this journey to understand and help wherever we can. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate, you know, having new owners as well as long-standing owners, because, you know, there again, you've got some diversity of opinion that's really valuable. So do you think it's worthwhile trying the bags and maybe getting some lion feces and trying that as well then?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, right now, I mean, there's always pros and cons to everything, but if we don't try, we won't know, right? We have to take calculated, you know, guesses at times. And then, of course, we need to take the risks. Then most definitely, let's try so that we understand and we can say, okay, we can rule out certain things right now. All we're saying is that, yeah, there are options, and we're thinking, everyone has got their own thought, this will work and this won't work. But if we try it and then we have conclusive evidence that it's going to work or it won't work. Yeah. Okay,
great. Thank you so much. And I'd encourage all of you to spread the word that Peter from the Drummond Arms is going to be on the 14th at 5, because I think there's some unique problems related to food that we need to address as well. But let me just run through the rest of my slides, and we can take it from there and see if we can just start something small. Okay, so The other reason for, I think, for red bags is that red bags are less unlikely for visitors to bring than, say, a ShopRite bag, which is bright yellow. I'm also concerned about villagers getting upset with bags lying around. You know, if we could be very cognizant of where we put them. Now, if you've got a camera, that may not be the case, because I think a camera, the need of a camera or the use of a camera will trump all of that. And if we don't use plastic bags and we put something like bricks in them, there's very little chance that the wind will take them or that the baboons will carry them away and just sort of spread contents far and wide. So let's bear all of that in mind. Humans meddling with bags, you know, I'd like to think that if we're putting them initially around our homes, that we won't have humans coming onto our properties and either putting food into our bags or something else. But that's maybe one of the reasons to avoid the perimeter where, you know, that is close to the road, so that you don't inadvertently have someone, or even on purpose, putting food in a bag that is meant to have no food in it. Because remember those pigeons that's picked very sporadically and went crazy when they couldn't get a constant reward? The chances are that they will then be encouraged to try more bags because they don't know whether a bag's going to have reward or not. So yeah, humans throwing food garbage into them, that's one of my concerns. Okay, and then I spoke about this alternative reward idea of trying to put something different around some rich fynbos area. And I don't know if we're ready for any of that. I think we should just start with one simple thing, which is just, can we extinct the idea that baboons look in, let's say, a red bag for food? If we can't do even that, then there's nothing else that's worth doing. But could we then, if we can teach them that, could we then start pairing it with a red bag has a certain smell? But how do we keep that up over the long term? I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to prevent something that where we have to hurt our baboons, or, you know, give them an electric shock or whatever. I don't know if that's possible. It doesn't sound like it from what game wardens who know a whole lot more than me say. But I feel we've got nothing to lose. That's the other thing. And then remember that extinction burst. And are there any other challenges or possible unintended consequences? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so how would we know if it's working? I think having a camera at Robert and Moran's is excellent. And also, just if you can be very cognizant of noticing your baboon's behavior around your bags over time, if you happen to be there. So I don't want anyone to be sitting hours at a time, but I do think if we can reactivate the warning that baboons are in town, it may make that easier for us. Now, I don't know, is Leon still there? Because that was happening in December when there were lots of people around, but I don't know. Does Leon live there permanently? Peter says communication with the village before we do anything is critical. A small sign at the location of the bag describing the project would help. Absolutely. I think that's a really great idea. So, you know, if anyone's going to take a part in this, just a little something near the bag that says, you know, this is part of an experiment, please do not put food in, etc., I think would be a great way to do it. Hopefully putting these kinds of videos on the group and in a public space will also form as a way of communicating. And I certainly would be happy to post something on the WhatsApp group saying, if you see red bags, this is what we're trying to do. So can I suggest then that the next step is just, we don't jump into anything right now. Let's see, can we find red bags? Is there a source of red bags? Can we have them made? So if all of you could feed that back to me, then let's listen to Peter on the 14th. And after that, let's start with the idea of starting a program. Maybe Elby can also look at how readily available getting some lion dung is. And so we can take it from there. And I mean, I wonder, you know, with the idea of lion dung, if there isn't a way of putting it along the perimeter of where they normally cross into Royals over time. So if Robert and Moran see that over time of putting lion poop in their yard, baboons don't access that area, well, maybe there's something we can do along the side of the R44 where they access the village even. I don't know, although there's also that part that, you sort of want to see them foraging. I mean, if we could teach them just to forage, and I love the baboons and royals. So there are many thoughts about that. In the meantime, if you've got any other ideas, you're welcome to feed them back to me. I'll tell you, I've had some wonderful ideas come my way, ideas that I'd never thought about. And that's the whole reason why I wanted to open up this space, even though I recognize that it's not an official source. It's not the baboon management team. It's just one person with a snippet of an idea. Okay, everybody, thanks so much. I really appreciate all your input. It's really valuable. Have a great week, and hopefully I'll see you all on the 14th.